Today's panel, we have an incredible set of stakeholders here in the Anchor Bay journey. At the end here, we have Andy Storm with Six Axis Capital, Anchor Bay CEO, Rob Thomas, and then we have Lisa from Hart Industries, who's a longtime customer of Anchor Bay. So we thought we could really hit the Anchor Bay story from every kind of conceivable angle and walk through, even including Anchor Bay's customers. I know that's something that shops are always wondering is how are they treating the customers and what do customers want from job shops and contract manufacturers. And then of course, Lynnsie from Anchor Bay as well, running HR. We want to get through the whole kind of story here, so we'll just dive right in, starting with Rob. So Rob, we kind of touched on the growth there. Sam gave a nice little overview. I think he said from 11 folks to almost 80 over 11 years, and even over the last 3 years is 30 to 70. And I remember when we had visited Rob 3 years ago, they were in a smaller building. It's like, yeah, we're going to buy that bigger building, and then we're going to close down this one. And then, it was like months later, like, we're not closing down anything. We need both spaces, and we're looking at building permits as well. So, Rob, it'd be incredible if you could take us back to the beginning, the whole story. How did Anchor Bay get started, and where's the company focused on, and kind of what's the growth plan?
Yep, so we started as a auto body shop in 1984. My dad started that, ran along like that just fine for years. My dad decided that he wanted to try something different that didn't involve insurance companies and the general public as much. So we moved into trying Powdercoat small scale, put in a little upstairs mezzanine above our main floor, and did the two side by side for probably 20 years. So fast forward to 2008, economy's going bad. We were in bad shape. So I kind of went and told my parents that either I had to take over and try to build it into something more, or I was going to have to move on to something else. So they reluctantly agreed that I should give it a shot, and I already knew right out of the gate I wanted to go more into the powder coating industry. So I took over officially in the end of 2009 and just really started talking to customers and making some connections and getting more work. So bought another oven, set up another line, and then by November of 2011, we had shut our auto body shop down altogether. And then that's when we really started to pick up steam, got all the auto body equipment out, put in more ovens, more lines, hired more good people, got more customers, and then kind of fast forward again to what Sam already talked about with the, buying the other building. We were supposed to move there and just got so much busier over COVID that we ended up keeping both buildings and pretty much have both at full capacity today.
That's it speaks volumes of Rob Thomas, and that's really, if you had to introduce Rob in 20 seconds, you'd just tell that middle part of the story where things weren't going so well, right, in the recession, and backs against the wall, and instead of sitting down and crying, Rob says, he grabs whatever's in front of him and he runs as hard as he can through whatever wall he thinks is the right wall to run through. So that's incredible, and that really kind of tells the whole story. Lisa, wondering if you could give a quick introduction of Hart Industries. How long have you all been in business? What are you guys' core offerings? And then, what's it like being an Anchor Bay customer? And keep in mind there's over 40 shops here today that have folks like yourself as a customer. So feel free to get your shots on that as far as like, hey, everyone always says I want my suppliers to be ABC. So feel free to give it to them. Like, what do you want a great supplier to be? And then give your perspective on Anchor Bay as well.
Sure. I am Lisa, Hart Industries president. We have been in business for just over 7 years. We are a Michigan-based CNC precision machining and manufacturing company. Originally, we started out as program management and outsourcing solutions until one day my husband came home with a very big vision and told me he had purchased his first CNC machine and we were going into business. That's how Hart Industries started. Over the years, we have gained our ISO 9001-2015 certification. We are also a certified women-owned business with the National Council. We are a registered ITAR, JCP, and we are currently working through our CMMC Level 2 as well as the AS 9100 certifications. So that's soon to come. As far as what we offer, we do CNC milling and turning, multi-axis. We also do Swiss machining, 3D printing, laser part marking, and assemblies. That's kind of our wheelhouse. We work in automotive, consumer packaging, aerospace, and heavily in defense with ground systems. And that's where we're looking to grow at the current moment as well, and also looking into SpaceX. So we have a very strong team. We focus on 3 metrics: on-time delivery, customer satisfaction, and quality, and we'd be able to hold a 99% with that on all categories, and that's very important to us. Recently, we have moved into a new building that's going to support our growth, and we still, run as the family-owned machine shop. That's one of our major things. We are very proud of our team and the team that we've built, and also with the partnerships that we have come to grow over the years. Working with Anchor Bay, I think at first when we went there, we were not their ideal customer. We were doing job shop work, but small production runs, prototyping. We didn't need any certifications. It was just regular paint. But over the years, like I said, we now have a large defense contract in land systems, which do require the certifications, the attention to detail, understanding of requirements. Sometimes I reach out to Rob and I'm like, hey, not sure what this is. Do you do this? And he's able to help answer the questions. He'll even, go into, hey, it's in this paragraph of this document under this, and this is what it means. So it's been a learning experience for myself and my coworkers, but working with them has really been great. Customer service, yeah, we've really grown more as a partnership than just being a customer. I never feel like a number. We know their team, so yeah.
That's incredible. Thank you, Lisa. And just to restate, I think what you said is it's the power of the relationship with Anchor Bay is not that it's just a transactional customer. Like I send a quote and the next day you send it down the street just because it's $1 cheaper. It's like, hey, you call Rob and say like, what is this? Do you guys do this? And knowing Rob, he probably says, let me get back to you. And then he's doing it the next week. But then growing with you, because now you have this entire reliable company. Lynnsie, I'd love to switch over to you. You're new to Anchor Bay, focus on the HR side. Obviously, as you grow, once you have more than 11 people, it's difficult to do human resources just from the hip on the fly. So what's it like taking a business that's had informal HR policies for a while, right? And kind of taking it and positioning it for growth. So what's that transition been like, and what are you working on the rest of this week after you go home?
Yeah, so HR for me, every day is different. There's not one day that is the same. So right now I'm really focused on building strong HR foundations that not only support our employees, but also support the business as well. So that's building strong onboarding processes, streamlining just policies and procedures, and developing the training, and creating programs that are going to be sustainable and scalable for growth, which is what our intent is.
Very nice. Andy, your team recently made a pretty big investment in Anchor Bay, and you guys have been leaning in aggressively. What excited you most about Anchor Bay?
Well, I think number one is, and anyone in the audience that works in the trenches knows that you really need a good partner. And the partnership that you develop needs to be a partnership of trust. And when I first met Rob, I realized very quickly that he was grounded in reality. He wasn't aloof. He didn't have ambitions that were crazy. He was truly focused on how he can improve his business and ultimately help improve how the business serves customers, and was very open and honest about the areas where he needed help and where he needed support and resources. And through our conversation, Rob helped me understand and the team understand just how diverse his business was. And I'm sure many of you in the audience, in a job shop-based environment, you're very familiar with the velocity of purchase orders that come inbound and the short amount of time from when you complete a job and get new inbound purchase orders. There's not a lot of runway in front of you as far as visibility to forecast labor, and to ultimately manage your direct material spend. And to Jeff's introductory comment about systems and processes and all the work that Lynnssie's doing, when you start small and the business starts to grow, at times the processes and the systems can kind of fall behind because you're just trying to survive. And through our dialogue and discussions with Rob, it became very apparent that, one, he was a great partner, would be a great partner. He was someone who valued trust-based relationships and acknowledged that we had a need for bringing talent like Lynnsie into our organization to ultimately help us build a team, build processes and systems that would help us better serve our customers. And so we're very early on our journey, but we're all working really, really hard to make the business better and ultimately help improve how we serve customers like Hart Industries.
Thank you, Andy. Switching over to kind of the digital transformation topic for a bit here. Rob, once you started picking up the steam in the powder coating after we got past the recession there, and you started seeing that growth there, how did you decide to leverage technology? When did you decide to start implementing those changes, and what are some of the challenges you had to overcome, and what does it enable? Like, why? What's the so what?
So we were strictly pen and paper when I took over. I mean, accounting, everything. There was no QuickBooks. There was none of that. It was my mom, pen and paper, everything. So after watching her do that for 25 years, I was like, yeah, we're not doing that. We're going to do something a little different. So just a baby step into something as simple as QuickBooks. Got that kind of figured out. And then, still running processes in the shop, pen and paper. Thought, there should be something that we could do kind of QuickBooks-wise in the shop, but not big enough. We weren't big enough to support a full ERP system or anything like that. So I ended up finding out if you bumped up a notch on QuickBooks, you could do a sales order or a work order through QuickBooks. So I was like, no, that seems like a good step. So we did that. That worked. Now we started getting into military, and you need to, have your processes more tracked than you would with just day-to-day commercial stuff. And then again, when we went for ISO, same thing. You have to have your processes very well tracked. And we're like, well, we don't have a way to do that. So we were then Sam actually built a nice little paper traveler, and then ISO guy comes in. Okay, well, how do you know if they completed it? Okay, well, we're going to mark this one off in this color and that one in that color. Okay, well, how are you going to do this? We're going to get a little stamper and we're going to stamp it. And next thing you know, it's like, wow, this thing is, we have a lot of things going on in this little piece of paper here, So it probably was a couple years that, I was like, man, we really are getting to the point where we do need some sort of an actual purpose-built ERP system. And it's like, where do you start, right? Where do you even start looking for this system that's going to work for us? So I probably, over those 2 years, maybe 6 or 7 times, sat down at my computer and started on Google. Okay, where am I going to find this system that I want? Just never really found the right one. And then I actually got an email out of the blue from Steelhead. Delete, right? I get another one, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe this might make sense. So that was kind of what started it. And then Jeff and Aaron came in for a meeting and really liked what they had to say. And I thought, man, this really, really can help us get our stuff under control here. And it really did. It enabled us to get rid of all that pen and paper and just have a digital trail of everything we're doing, and never looked back since.
Fantastic. And Lisa, from your perspective, one of your suppliers, one of your partners, Anchor Bay, kind of levels up their game in many different ways, from HR to equipment, which maybe we'll circle back to the auto line story. But what does that mean to you as a customer to Anchor Bay, right? I mean, as long as the parts are here and the parts are done right, like that's all that matters. Or like, is there some what does that mean to you to know that Anchor Bay is making those investments, and what impact does it have to you?
It's huge. We were there when Rob was doing the paper trail, following up the amount of phone calls we were making, like, hey, when's this part going to be ready? Did you receive our purchase order? Can we get a confirmation on that? The similar struggles I'm sure a lot of you go through on a daily. Implementing Steelhead has been huge for us. We received an email, we logged online, we're able to see where our orders are in progress, we're able to see the purchase orders that we've sent. They can also upload quoting in there so we can see our quote history, when something's shipping, if they're updating target dates. There's full transparency and communication there. It also goes as far as to house your certifications. So again, we do a lot of defense work, so that's huge for traceability, is our certifications to be able to ship our parts. Before, we'd be calling or emailing like, hey, do you have this one? We want to ship out our parts today, but we don't have the cert yet. We got to get, it audited, whatever. Certs are now uploaded. They're there. They're traceable. They're trackable. It's truly been huge. And I think in a world where we are all so used to Amazon, you place your Amazon order, you can track it from when you place it to when it's shipped, to when it's in transit, to when it's been delivered. That's the world we've become accustomed to, and that's kind of how Steelhead works. You can have full visibility of where your parts are and when you can expect to have them.
So the quality, on-time delivery, reliability, all that, and then just easy to work with, easy to do business with, makes your life easier.
Yeah, very easy to do business with, and again, the full transparency. I'm able to update my customers if something isn't going to be on time. They're also very flexible to be able to rework the schedule if needed, if there's a hot item, so yeah, very easy to work with.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe when we open it up to questions to the audience, and just a reminder, we'll have plenty of time for questions. So jot down a question you have for anyone on the stage. But Lisa, it's one of the things that we hear from some shops when they are evaluating opening up their, a little bit there, lifting the shades on the window in real time is they get pretty nervous about that. They like to keep their customers a little bit in the dark, make them phone call, make them email, because now you got time to maneuver, right, in the hours or days that pass when you're getting an answer back. So that's excellent to hear your perspective on that. Lynnsie, the coatings business is fundamentally a people business, right? I mean, we paint, natural gas, things like that, but labor is a huge percentage of everything. But when we're using a system, when we're going digital, we're recording, logging time, we're tracking profitability, communicating with customers. This all hinges on IT systems and also compliance. Like, if folks are just willy-nilly and just doing things outside of systems, the whole machine kind of breaks. So how do you handle that from an HR perspective to get the entire staff to play their role in the system?
Yeah, so implementation starts with communication, teaching them not just the what, but also the why. It's been exciting to bring a lot of our new hires in and show them as we continue to grow the development with Steelhead. We've had a lot of success recently with green hires, so people who are not familiar who are new to manufacturing, bringing them in and being able to take more ownership of their work and then help them with the confidence in their work as well. And then as far as sustainability, having leadership support and then continuously training is going to help with just it not being just a one-time rollout, but helping that implementation stick as well.
And Lynnsie, one of the things that we see out there with shops that are working on any transformation, and it's not specifically digital, but again, it's kind of around the team getting with the program a little bit. Sometimes you have folks that have been there for 30 years and they have their ways. So how do you navigate that, right? If you have someone, whether it's an IT system or any system, how do you handle an employee from an HR perspective that's quite stuck in their multi-decade, trench there?
Yeah, for that I think is always looking at the big picture. Like, this might be cumbersome at first, but this is what it's going to do. X is going to do this, Y is going to do this, and at the end of the day, it's just going to make your job easier. And then the reporting capabilities are unlimited as well to be able to show us, who's doing what, when, where, what, and why. And then we're able to hold employees accountable for that as well. So I think just having a positive outlook on everything, and then the open and honest communication about it, and not just from the beginning, throughout the whole entire process, is super helpful.
Awesome. And then Andy, for when folks are looking at implementing systems or upgrading their businesses, I mean, sometimes they look at lead time or profit or internal metrics. So it's like, what's in it for me? Like, you're not just going to do this for fun, but one of the things that also is a component of it, and Dan has a session later today that touches on just this, is how do you prepare a shop for external investment? So it'd be really interesting to hear your perspective when you're evaluating Anchor Bay. You mentioned the people and the culture and the growth of the business and the customers, but how about the systems? Like, how do the systems play in from your perspective coming outside? Now you're on the team, but when you're looking at a business from the outside, how do the systems play in to the conversation?
Yeah, I mean, the systems are obviously extremely critical, and one of the important items that I think a lot of small business owners maybe lose sight of is you feel so overwhelmed when you're a single, private business owner trying to grow your business, you're onboarding employees. You typically don't see in small businesses a breadth of functional resources around an owner. Typically, you have a model similar to Rob, where it's Rob and his wife, Sarah, and as the business is growing, right, they're typically putting all the excess capital that they have back into the business versus starting to ultimately invest in what we all refer to as overhead, right, where you're trying really hard as the business owner to keep your overhead low and investing any excess capital you have into equipment, systems and processes such as Steelhead. But in a small business, that can come at the expense of functional resources like Lynnsie. We have a finance accounting leader, Ashley, and others, sales leadership. And so that's a challenge. But I think what some people, especially private small business owners, don't realize is that when they look to exit their business, most buyers are looking for the processes and systems that give them confidence that the business they're acquiring has a firm foundation from which to grow with external capital and external investment. And it's the systems like Steelhead that allow us to ultimately look at and assess all the work in process inventory, all the historic customer relationships, pricing, margin, labor costs, material as a percent of revenue, labor as a percent of revenue. And then to Lisa's comment, do you have processes and systems that may be in their infancy and may not necessarily be used at all levels of the organization, but is there a system in place that with the right coaching, with the right mentorship, with the right resources, we can improve how we're currently serving customers? I think Rob will be the first to tell you that in the early innings of adopting Steelhead, there's a plethora of challenges, right? You're trying to connect your QuickBooks system or whatever accounting system you're using to the jobs that are flowing through your business. You're trying to get employees at all levels, but particularly direct labor out on the manufacturing floor to use the system to clock on and clock off of jobs. The employees on the floor are very suspect or paranoid about now being told to clock on and off of jobs because they think Big Brother is now spying on them and monitoring every single movement, every action that they have on their floor. When in reality, what we're trying to do is the same thing that Rob and I did early on in our relationship, and that is exercise transparency, build relationships of trust, help the people on the factory floor understand the Steelhead system that we've adopted and put in place is to actually help them improve how they do their job and also improve, boy, this thing won't stay on my lap, and also improve how we serve our customers, because if our customers are not happy and our lead times are deteriorating and not getting better, then the longevity of our business is at risk, because Lisa, no matter how nice we are to her, no matter how frequently we bring her Dunkin' Donuts, if we don't deliver product on time at a market competitive price, she will most certainly take her business elsewhere. And so that's a reality that everyone kind of wakes up to, and then you realize, wow, I need Steelhead, or I need a system to manage my business, to operate it daily and serve my customers. And as a private business owner, if I'm thinking of exiting my business down the road, if I can get 1 or 2 clicks of EBITDA or earnings more at exit by having a system that a buyer has confidence in, wow, the return on investment seems much more significant in that environment than if I'm plugging and chugging using a paper-based system with healthy margins in a profitable business. But anyone coming in from the outside can't really operate my business and run my business because everything is literally run on a piece of paper, which a lot of small businesses are.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think that's a good lead up to kind of pivoting into the acquisition and future plans. And anytime you're making an investment into your business, whether it's a new piece of machinery, hiring a new leader, implementing new systems, it's the ROI. Like, what does this actually accomplish for our business? And in the case of Anchor Bay, it's been a really exciting outcome where they've grown revenue, they've grown profit, and then attracted investments. So really meaningful, hard outcomes for the business. And I know it's a topic that's a little bit mystical for folks and a little bit distant. So we wanted to kind of use this opportunity with the panel we have to kind of pull back the curtain a little bit, for folks that are thinking it might be on the horizon some years out in the future. Even if you're not looking to exit to a professional investor or sell or partner, whatever the case may be, it's still really interesting to understand, like, how do the folks in the conversation think? Because that they're being very logical, and that applies to folks, even if you're planning to hand it down to the next generation or whatever. The same basic economic concepts apply. But anyways, like, I'd love to dig in a little bit onto the process itself. So Rob, after 20 years, you decided, hey, I actually remember the phone call you made, and is something along the lines of like, hey, the bank's not going to give me money. I got all these plans, and I and then you started talking with Andy, and then you decided to move forward. Like what drove that decision? Like why not just keep doing what you were doing for the last 20 years?
Well, I found the bigger you grow, the harder it gets to grow on your own, So I thought, man, I had business partners in the past, but they really didn't help me out in any way. So I thought, man, what would it be like to have partners with the same vision that I have, the same goals that I have, to help me? I can focus on what I'm good at. I'm not this super crazy business owner guy that just is the best at every single thing there is, right? I have my strengths. So I thought, man, if I could have other people with me that had different strengths than mine, which very much Dan and Andy do, I thought, man, that would be great. But how would you go about finding this person that you could trust, right? This is a family thing for me. As Sam said, every one of my employees is a family member. My actual family's in the business. So it's like, how would I even go about this, And then once I talked to Andy, it just got more comfortable, realized we kind of had some things in common, and thought, this might actually be something I would be interested in. And prior to the conversation, I really wasn't that interested in it, to be honest with you. It was just more chasing down that lead. You gave me the lead. I said, what the heck, I'll look into it, because of that fact that I just wasn't confident in it, that it would be something that would work out well, And then as soon as I talked to him, like, wow, this isn't some corporate greed, like, come and take my company over thing. And that was initially my take, is that was how that whole process would unravel, right? They're just going to come in and take everything over and change everything around. It's going to be this crazy thing, And, after quite a few conversations we had, I was super comfortable that, no, we definitely have the same end goal in mind. So it just made it a lot easier.
I know now there's a lot more definition on like where are we going, what's our goals, what's our plan, which is, it gets harder to grow when you're larger, but having a plan and a goal helps. Like a year ago, pre-talking to Andy at all, like if someone walked up to you, Rob, and you said like, what's the goal? Like what's the plan for Anchor Bay? Like what would have been the response then, and what would be the response now?
Yeah, well, I think the goal is still similar. It's just the goal before I was having trouble figuring out how to get there, right? I knew we were going pretty heavy in the military, wanted to go into more in the military. We were already, with adding the second location, getting kind of cramped for room a little bit. So it's like, well, if I'm going to go way heavier after these bigger military contracts, I'm going to need more room again. And I just got the loan and did all that for the second location. I'm like, well, I'm not doing that again. I'm not putting any more debt on my shoulders. The only other way I could really do it was by bringing these guys on. So the goal really didn't change. Still going heavy after the military and aerospace industries, still gonna grow it the best way we can. It's just now I have resources behind me where I don't have to think, how am I gonna do this? How much risk am I gonna take on with it? So now, sharing the risk with other people, just so much more comfortable, can sleep much better at night, a lot less risk on my shoulders,
Fantastic. And then Andy, what drew you to this industry specifically? And from an economic perspective, how do job shops and small manufacturers play a role in America's manufacturing? And just the one thing I'd share that I ran across recently, just to paint some color for myself, is I heard saw the stat, there's 600,000 manufacturers in the United States of America, and 75% or 450,000 are less than 20 people. So given that kind of backdrop, what drew you to this industry, and how do job shops and small manufacturers play a role in the United States economy?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll take your questions in reverse, Jeff. My business partner, Dan Burseth, who I think many of you will hear from later today, he and I love manufacturing. It's what I've been involved in my entire life. My wife thinks I'm crazy. My mother thinks I'm crazy. I really, really enjoy personally the pace, the chaos, the pandemonium that comes with working in manufacturing. I think it's a noble calling. You get up every morning, you get out into the trenches, you work with real people who have no filter and who care deeply about their livelihoods, because most of them have a job that pays their mortgage, puts food on their table, allows them to go to a state park in the summer on a short vacation. But very few of them, right, have a lot of the luxuries that many of us in this environment enjoy on a day-to-day basis, including being able to come to an event like this. They're all working on the line. And so when Dan and I step back and assess what the term that's used in industry is smart money, right? There's a ton of smart money. I don't know the statistic off the top of my head, but trillions and trillions of dollars of dry capital money that's waiting to be invested in businesses. And most of that smart money, people who work on Wall Street, are chasing what they call CapEx-like businesses and businesses that don't look like a small job shop with 160 different customers. Purchase orders come in on a 3 to 4 to 5 day basis. Once you deliver, you don't know what's coming in the next week. It's a very direct labor intensive business model. You don't powder coat a thing without direct labor. So you have all this direct labor in your business. You have about a week to 2 weeks of visibility. You want to grow the business, which means you have to bring labor into the business because you can't typically produce more with less unless you improve your productivity, which we're working on. But I think the thing that's just super exciting about this, and I'm sure what has drawn all of you here today, is it's challenging. It's very challenging. It's not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. But the problems themselves that plague job shops are fundamental problems. First conversation I had with Rob, Andy, I need help hiring direct labor. Can you help me hire team members who will work here and help build the business? Yes. Let's bring a great leader like Lynnsie on board who has been instrumental in helping us build our team. We need help on the floor. Process efficiency. Step number 1. Rob, look at this big cavernous building we're in. There's wooden pallets everywhere. How do those wooden pallets get moved? With fork trucks. We've got buildings full of people, fork trucks moving all over. Everything is stagnant on the floor. Goal number 1, how do we get stuff on wheels so we can decouple fork trucks from our process? How do we drive up the utilization vertically, take advantage of all this vertical space? Let's go buy some vertical racking from the guy up 2 miles down the street, put some vertical racking in. How do we make our processes visible? So when I look in front of our blast booth, I can see what's the cadence of work going in and coming out. When I go to our prep area, what goes to prep, what goes directly to the line, what has to go through the dip line, all these key processes. And being able to leverage Steelhead as a tool to help us on that journey with great people, with a great partner. Ultimately, you wake up in the morning, you're excited, you're energized, and again, taking baby steps to improve. Lots of satisfaction amongst the team because we're solving real problems. It's fun.
Yeah, Andy, just a quick follow-on to that. A lot of talk about how Anchor Bay has grown and appreciate the specificity of examples. Sometimes you just hand wave and say grow or whatever, but literally pallets on the floor and space utilization and forklifts being as part of workflow. And so I really appreciate the specificity. I think that's really helpful for everyone here. But how do you evaluate whether Anchor Bay has the potential to grow in the first place from the outside in during that evaluation process?
So I think, obviously it's an age-old adage. You don't want to be in the situation of a lot of, we're in Detroit, right in the heart of downtown Detroit in the Motor City. You do not want to be under the thumb of an automotive OEM. So check that box. Rob's not under the thumb of an automotive OEM. You don't want to be at the mercy of a tier 1 supplier where based on program volumes, right, a major program gets canceled and it materially changes the economics of the business that drastically alters the business model. Rob has 160 unique customers. None of them represent more than 5% of his total revenue. So there's a lot of customer diversity. There's a lot of avenues for us if customer A, something happens to customer A, JLTV program gets canceled or delayed. We have avenues of opportunity to go into other end markets or really start to grow with other customers, for example, in the commercial realm, where a business or an end market is ultimately scaling and growing. And then ultimately being able to have systems in place where we can improve how we serve our customers. Most of you know in this audience that any business typically grows and typically improves when you improve how you serve your customers. I see Andrew sitting in the front row. If any of you have a chance, talk to Andrew here in the front row, who started with a, was it a $300,000 business? $200,000 business in a rat's nest of a building. And I think has one of the most beautiful professional coating businesses in the country right now down in Florida. His philosophy, improve how you serve customers and you will grow. We're working really hard, Lisa, to improve how we serve you and how we serve our other customers. It's a journey. You know, one of the funny, I shouldn't say funny, but early conversations Rob and I had early on was, like, when Dan and I showed up, you kind of have this mindset as a business owner, we're gonna walk in, we're gonna sprinkle pixie dust on the desk, and in a couple weeks, everything's just gonna be sunshine and roses. Has it been sunshine and roses, Rob?
Not exactly.
So we're chipping away at it, right? We're making little baby steps, incremental steps every day.
Yeah, so maybe, Rob, just pivoting into that, you know, since it's been about 6 months. So, you know, what changes have happened in the last 6 months or so that would have been difficult to do absent, you know, this whole transition?
Well, I mean, the first change right out of the gate that was nice is, you know, we've been able to hire people, but just never really the people that we needed. Andy definitely had a little flair for that right out of the gate, because that was the first day he came in. He's like, what's our number one issue? We need more, not just people. We can get all the people we want, but we need good quality people. And that's where we were struggling. He's like, all right, I'm on it. Literally found a desk and sat down and we went to town on it, and literally just started bringing people in, and they were decent people. I'm like, wow, this is great. So that was just the number one thing. You can do nothing there. Like you said, super labor intensive. If we don't have good people, we just can't do anything. So that was number one. Got some good people in there, great. And then, like you said, let's get pallet rack going. Let's get the stuff off the floor. Let's get carts going. Let's just get processes more sorted out where everybody's using them. That's one of our bigger issues too, is, you know, you have tiers of people, right? I'm here and I got guys here and under them, and down it goes, and something just gets lost, you know, from me down to the bottom guy, it just gets lost. So if you don't have a solid process in place where it's like, I don't even need to say it. We already have a process for it, goes all the way down to those guys. So really getting those processes solidified where everybody just knows what they are, that's probably the most important thing right there.
Yeah, it really underscores that the people inside the business is not just like this casual thing that just kind of happens, which, Rob, you know, I know some years ago, right, I think you said for every 10 people you hire, one sticks around for a multi-month period of time. And then I think even last year, the COVID and all the government subsidies to stay home type of thing, it was like 1 in 25. It actually got way worse. So it's a colossal drag in the business, colossal challenge, and but it's something that can be fixed, right? It's almost like your kitchen. If you don't put any energy in, it just gets dirty and kind of atrophies. But if you set up systems and processes, you can fight that kind of gravitational pull. Lisa, how's your perspective, your experience changed over the whole transition here?
We have a lot more visibility into what is happening with our jobs, which is obviously for me huge. You know, we've seen them grow over the past 6 months, and even prior to that, things that were being implemented that really didn't just help them, it also helped us as a customer. And obviously as a customer, that's what we're always looking for. So you know, with the digital data that we're able to get from Steelhead, that's great for us, but also the communication, the transparency. Again, working in defense, the traceability is huge. You know, I think we've talked a lot about trust today, and one of the things is we are able to trust in Anchor Bay that when we take our parts there, they're going to produce them to what is on our purchase order, and provide us with the documentation that we need for us to be able to ship to our customer. So it's not just about trust with us at Anchor Bay, it also creates trust between our customers, knowing that we're going to do what we say we're going to do because Anchor Bay is doing what they say they're going to do. And the digital data part of it is huge for us. It cuts time in our employees having to be calling around and figuring out where things are, when things are going to be ready. And I know we talked a little bit about Anchor Bay's growth, the things that have been put in place for them, something that's helped us as a customer. They recently purchased a semi-truck. So now we're able to get our parts delivered and picked up. I know it's a new thing. They have a great driver, Paul. He's great. He'll come in there with a smile on his face. We get our parts there. The other day, I didn't even know parts were coming. I hadn't checked the dashboard, and he just showed up. So it's great. Again, the paperwork side of it, if I need something, it's in Steelhead, and I go there and I can look for it without having to bother everybody else. So it's been huge.
Fantastic. Lisa, I just want to touch on that, and anyone from the Anchor Bay team can answer this, just kind of a side question, because I think it's the really specific topics that people are really going to stick with. Buying a brand new truck. I saw the picture on LinkedIn. It's got the pull-away tarp. There's not a lot of people buy brand new trucks. So like, how is that? How is that not just a complete flim-flam waste of money? Like, what's the ROI buying a brand new off the truck, shiny semi truck? Like, talk us through that business decision.
See, for me, it was more of another added benefit for our customers. You know, it's one of the number one things we hear is, oh man, you know, trucking this or trucking that, and we have to get it. And I thought, man, it would just be nice to me as not only for our customers, but as a growth thing, right? If I have this truck, I can get these other customers that, you know, if are maybe a half hour away, they have another coater that's 5 minutes from them, but they would prefer to use us. They like our quality better. They like our, you know, customer service better, but they're just not going to go the half hour versus the 5 minutes. So it's like, hey, if you want to come and get the parts, we'll use you. So it's like, yeah, we definitely need a truck.
Wow.
So early on, we'll see how it really pans out. But so far, it's been, I mean, you heard it right from her that they just love it. Our customers absolutely love it.
Great. It's a beautiful truck. Lynnsie, growth and adding another operation by way of future acquisition, which I know is part of the plans here, is difficult. So like, how do you scale that? We just talked about how difficult it is to kind of herd the chickens, manage all the people with 30 people, 50 people, and now we're at 80, and then there's talk of more. Like, how is that not just a big scary thing? Like, what gives you confidence on that as far as processes, templates, standard processes, things like that?
Yeah, so growth and acquisition is always challenging. And for me, being with Anchor Bay for just a few short months, I'm still very much deep in the trenches and covering a ton of ground. But as we continue to grow, I have learned that it's going to be super important for us to formulate formal processes, templates, as you had mentioned, for onboarding processes, training, policies, procedures, but also knowing that we need to remain flexible so that way we can adapt to any organization that we partner with. And then for me, in addition to that, is I'll say I'm an over-communicator. Communication is key, and then just showing our partners that we are there to support them, whether the task is big or small.
Fantastic. And then we have plenty of time for questions. But the last one, I want to give Andy the closing spot here. What's next? What does the next 5 years look like?
Well, I think number one is we obviously want to, with Rob, as you heard him mention, grow the business. And so for us, our goal is to really differentiate ourselves in North America. We believe that there's plenty of opportunity in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So our goal is to really expand and grow in the North American region and continue to carve out a niche space in the aerospace and defense end markets. We do quite a bit of work in the commercial space. While we're most certainly not completely avoiding automotive, you all know that the automotive industry can be extremely volatile, and it's really hard when you're constantly just riding the roller coaster. So our goal is to continue to bring stability to the business through growth and really expand into end markets, expand our offerings. So, you know, we spend a lot of time looking at and assessing how we can expand our current suite of solutions to expand what we offer to our customers, product and service-based solutions. And so we're very excited. We've talked to a number of coating and finishing businesses across the United States, and believe that there's a lot of folks that are kind of in that baby boomer generation where businesses are going to be turning over in the next 5 to 10 years. And we think that we're positioned to help a lot of the baby boomer generation who want to sell their businesses, to acquire those businesses, provide those owners with a very smooth exit transition plan, and ultimately be able to be good stewards of the business that many of them have spent their whole life building.
Excellent. Thank you. Feel free to raise your hand if any questions for the panel.
One thing I'm curious is, how are you able to leverage the reduced uncertainty that Anchor Bay now provides you?
Well, previously when we would drop stuff off again, it was all a paper trail. So we would be, you know, there was a time many years ago when I got a phone call and I was told, hey, we just found your parts in a box in the corner. Sorry, nobody checked these in. It wasn't visible. We thought they had our work. We thought they were doing it, expected a delivery date. That wasn't the case. In that situation, they did work to get those parts pushed through faster, make sure that we got them. But now with the new system, we're able to see that our parts are checked in, that our parts are moving, where they are at in the process. So it's really helped us as far as visibility and just knowing that we're going to get what we need when we need it. Does that answer your question?
He's asking like, okay, you have visibility, like, so what? Like, why is that important?
It's important to not just us, but our customers too. Just like Anchor Bay trying to provide us with on-time delivery, in turn, we're trying to provide our customers with on-time delivery. As I talked before, the statistics we track, one of them is on time. So we're able to, make sure that we're providing our customers with what they need, as well as Rob providing us with what we need.
All right, next question.
Yeah, I have a question for Rob and Lisa. If you could revisit the past and you got to a point where you were concerned about survivability, at that tipping point, what would you do differently today if that occurred?
It's a tough one.
Pretty reactionary that way, so I pretty much stay out in front of most of those types of things. So, I'm constantly watching the business. So if I have something that just seems it's going in the wrong direction, I just shift gears into a different direction. Like Andy was saying, if I'm in automotive and that's going down, then I'm going to go look at something else, heavy truck, or I'm going to look at, military or something like that to get out ahead of it. And over the 20-something years I've been doing this, that's always worked well for me.
For me, my husband is a visionary, so he is always looking what's next, what's upcoming, what can we forecast, what do we see? We did actually have that happen. One of our biggest customers ended up just really pulling back and trying to keep a lot of stuff that they were outsourcing in-house. That had a huge impact on us. Like I said, we are a family-owned business. We've been in business for 7 years. And at first, we had a few good customers. Well, one of those few good customers pulls back. It gets you in that situation where like, okay, what's next? And kind of like what Rob was saying, that just made us pivot. That's when we really started hammering into the defense industry. And it takes, again, in defense, a long time to get in. So it's something if you can be proactive rather than reactive and have those, conversations out there and knowing kind of the direction you're looking to go, it's really helpful in the planning process.
Michigan, much like the state of Florida where we're at, there's about 380 metal finishing businesses here. What differentiates Anchor Bay? Why do you pick them as opposed to others?
With Anchor Bay, they really understand the requirements. One of our biggest contractors, about a year or so ago, they put a new quality clause in place and didn't really tell anybody about it. It kind of just came about and it was there and it was something we were supposed to know about. We were processing parts with this quality clause on it and we reached out to Rob and we were like, hey, have you heard of this? And he's like, actually, yes. I'm working with that customer right now to get a better understanding of it, to know what I need to do, how I need to change my processes. And that to us was huge. There was a lot of companies in Michigan that weren't working with Anchor Bay, didn't know about the quality clause, and honestly, you couldn't find somebody to do it unless you just knew. So Rob took the time to meet with that customer, make it happen, and so now the majority of my parts go there, especially when they have that quality clause. And like, he took the time to figure it out. So that's why I choose Anchor Bay. I know I'm getting reliable parts, and I know my certs are going to be right. That is not my area of expertise. So Rob and his team really look into that and make sure we have what we need, and I can trust that they're going to be right without having that knowledge.
Adaptive, reliable partnerships versus take it or leave it is another way of saying that.
We overpay for our market. We have full medical, dental, health insurance, and a great PTO program, but I still can't attract the right staff. What do I need to do differently?
Oh, that's a loaded question. Offering those types of benefits is not going to be attractive to everyone. You're going to have people who have no interest in enrolling in benefits or people who just want to come in and just grind and have no intention of ever taking any PTO. So I think having diverse benefits to attract different walks of life is going to be beneficial, whether it's benefits, offering a stipend in lieu of benefits, something like that. But one thing that I find super attractive as of recently, since COVID, is work-life balance. So How much mandatory overtime do you have? What's your pay rate? Do wage surveys in your area? Is your wage competitive? It's just, you're gonna want to also look at your retention, possibly even explore doing exit interviews to find out why your people are leaving. I wouldn't necessarily focus it just strictly on benefits and PTO, because like I said, that's just not gonna be attractive to everyone. And then do you have somebody in-house that, like an in-house recruiter or? Yourself, okay. Even partnering with some staffing agencies, getting some contingency clauses in place might be helpful as well. But like I said, just look in your specific area, do wage surveys, make sure that your pay is competitive, and take a peek at how much overtime you're offering, because that's not also going to be attractive to people either. They might just want to work 40 straight hours, go home as soon as they punch that clock, or some people are like, nope, I want to work 80 hours a week, and they need that too. So just understanding what your team wants, and then understanding the reason for why they're leaving is going to be key, and then you can focus on those areas.
Like Lynnsie said, years ago we used to use staffing agencies, and then we kind of got away from them. But probably my last 8 hires have been through the staffing agencies, and it's nice because you can bring them in, you can get them working, and find out if they're a good fit. And for me, is can they play in the sandbox with the rest of the kids? You know. It really gives you a chance to get to know them before you take the time and effort in doing all the training and making them a permanent team member. Some people get in there and it's just not for them, and that's fine. But we've had a lot of success in the last, I'm going to say, year and a half with using the staffing agencies, and we currently deal with 3 of them, but mainly we have one that when they find a good hire, they'll actually call and say, hey, Kyle, I think we found somebody that would work out for you. So. Again, we in the last year and a half, we've had pretty good success, because other than that, I have no idea where to find people to work.
If you're local, find me after. I'll give you some suggestions on some staffing agencies.
A follow-up question for Kyle from Ingens Powder there, just to go bi-directional here for a second. Kyle, can you give us an update on the building? I know you were doubling the size of your shop, and then is how many people are you going from X to Y people? How many people are you looking to bring on?
Yeah, my building career is over. The building is almost complete. They're down to like their final 5 or 10 on their punch list. The new equipment's coming in October 15th. The ovens and that are coming in, and the rest of the line will be November 15th. So we're progressing slowly, but it's getting there. It's actually the project is on track for where I wanted it to be. The building project couldn't have gone any better. I'm just really sick of the building process.
Thank you, Kyle.
This question is for Rob. If you could give anybody one piece of advice that is just getting into the powder coating realm, what would it be?
Well, what I learned starting as a job shop as I did and doing a lot of different things, I didn't really get a lot of really good advice from like my representatives from my suppliers, which really surprised me. So I ended up having to learn a lot myself. You know, they would say, oh, do this. And I just have a hard time with it. And it's like, well, why is that? It turns out a lot of them, some of them aren't as knowledgeable, or maybe haven't expanded out into like the job shop space as much. I think a lot of the information out there is more for, hey, we got 100 of this part, and we're gonna run them all day. Okay, yeah, we're gonna get this pre-treatment, we're gonna have this and this coat, and it's all gonna be great. Okay, well, I do 10,000 different style parts, all different colors, all different treatments, all different everything. So that was one thing that I would say is not being afraid to look at a process and say, is this really the best? I know so-and-so said it is, but that doesn't mean it is. So that has served me very, very well. There's a lot of things we do that I don't know if anybody else does, and people come to us for it because I've tried something that I was told will not work, made it work, proved it works, and it's like, okay, it doesn't work, that's great, but I'm still doing it and it works just fine. So that would be my advice. Just make sure you're comfortable that your processes are the best they can be.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So obviously certifications open up new opportunities. Which ones did you see like the most revenue increase on, and what would you recommend for like a starting business?
Well, it kind of depends what industry that it is in. I think in general, the easiest, probably most bang for your buck is just going to be ISO 9001, because almost everybody wants to see that once you go past a certain level. For our business, it was more company specific. We do a lot of defense work. So that's where we get our biggest is, every prime, we have to have a specific certification from them to run. So those are the big ones for us personally. But I think just in general is the ISO 9001 for sure. And then I think specific industries have specific certifications, and like I said, for our specific business, the military specifications have been the big ones for us.
My question is for Rob. I was hoping you could walk through your emotional journey as a business owner to partner with Andy and how you gave up some of the control of your business.
So I'm sure many in here can agree that it's just been a little bit different since COVID now. You talk about hard time finding people, 10 times harder now since COVID. The ones you even find don't really want to do it. So it just hasn't been as fun for me as it once was. I love building the business and things like that. And it's just gotten harder to do where I thought, this is going to be easier. So that kind of lessened that emotional turmoil, I think. It's still there. It's still tough, especially signing. That was the doozy. It's like, I'm really going to sign this thing and I'm going to give up this control of my company. But I had faith. I think that was the key to the whole thing. If it was a situation where I had to sell for some reason, it might have been a little different, but I was confident in what I was going to do. I was confident that they were going to help me do it. Always risk. I don't know. You don't know until it's done, right? So that definitely helped me through it. It was probably, I'm not a super emotional guy as it is, but probably the most emotional thing I've ever been through. It was a pretty big roller coaster, but got through to the other end of it, and it's other than having good partners now, not much else has really changed. We just come in, we do our jobs, we run the business as we always have, just trying to do it in a better way. So
just because we're here at Ford Field, I'd like to share a quote with you guys concerning these staffing issues. I saw an interview recently with Dan Campbell, the coach, who in any given year might have to turn over a third or a half of his coaching staff, and he did this offseason. The interview asked him, how do you put together such a great team on such a short notice? And he said 3 things. Look for good people who work hard and work well together. It was such a simple formula, it struck me immediately because it sounds just like Steelhead, where I'm kind of the new guy, but I've seen good people who are hard workers and work well together. And with those 3 things, it doesn't matter what certifications they have, how many years of experience, what degrees, anything else, but you can do a lot with that.
I do have one quick question for Andy, actually, kind of a follow-on. We talked about HR management, and in this case, that the owner is doing it, right? So, and Anchor Bay is now in a position where they've grown to a scale where you can kind of afford the specialization of talent. Okay, your job is production, your job is the team, and so on. But Andy, what's your advice on leadership and growing? Because if you have 6 people in your company, you can't hire a CFO and 6 different people to sit in the air conditioning and give directive orders all day. So how do you get ahead of that? So if you're a smaller shop, how do you handle leadership?
Yeah, I think the best piece of advice that I could give to people in this audience that are running job shops is ask for help. Ask for help. It's strange how the human condition is such that we have so much pride, we have a hard time asking for help. And it starts when you're a little child all the way up to adulthood. Ask for help. So many people want to help. So many people are willing to open their doors, share advice. I think the one trait that I just really admire Rob for, and many of you heard it when he in his opening remarks here today, is the humility that he has. Right? He just speaks very openly about where he needed help, what he needed help with. I'm good at this. I'm not really good at that. Will you help me? Would love to help you, Rob. Labor. I travel across the country all day, every day of my life. I've never met a business owner who says, labor isn't a problem in my business. It's everywhere you go. Labor's an issue. It's hard to hire. Can't find the right people. And I always tell Dan Burseth, I love hearing that. because we can find really good people and we can find them quickly. Whether you're making pizzas, whether you're teaching kids how to do math, K through 12 students how to do math, where you need a very unique, specific skill set, or whether you're trying to get a guy, where's Sam, who made Chipotle burritos, Sam? Is that right? Chipotle burritos, sleeping in his car, like working 80 hours a week at a Chipotle, sleeping in his car, working double shifts, literally go sleep in the car for 3 hours overnight at 2 in the morning, get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, go back in to get the restaurant ready for the next day. Am I lying? True story. You can find good people who, to Joe's comment, want to work hard. You have to be willing to work hard, and you truly have to be willing to work with other people. If you can't work with other people from all walks of life, all skill sets, you're kind of in a rough, difficult place, and it won't be easy to fix whatever ails you. So to me, that's the nugget advice. Be willing to ask for help. Business owners, organizations, academics, get lots of input, make informed decisions, and just focus on taking those baby steps every day. So many people want to boil the ocean. They want to go from point A to point B at a laser beam speed. It doesn't happen that way in the real world. We're talking very, very incremental changes. Changing human behavior is really, really difficult. My wife, Amy, and I, we have 8 children, and the analogy I always use at work is loading the dishwasher, cleaning the bathrooms, making your bed. My own children have a hard time making their bed regularly. They have a hard time loading the dishwasher when there's dishes in the sink. They need me to remind them to do that. Why are we so confused about going into an industrial environment then working with people we don't even know and getting them to change their behavior when our own children at times have a difficult time changing their behavior? It's how we're wired as human beings. So it goes right back to leadership. You need leadership to drive that change, and it's an incremental baby step process.
Thank you.
I got a question here. So in high school, I worked at both McDonald's and Little Caesars. And I actually quit McDonald's to work at Little Caesars for a lower wage because there was just better, shop floor camaraderie and respect, and the culture was better. It was funner to work there. So, down the path of labor challenges, outside of wages and benefits, what kind of shop floor culture and camaraderie can you talk about at Anchor Bay?
I've always tried to keep a good, positive mentality, starting with myself. I've always been pretty involved in the shop floor. I've never really spent less than half of my time probably out there. And just talk to the guys, try to be positive myself, try to keep them positive. Identifying very early on when you do get a bad apple in there. Didn't really realize that early on. And, you might go 6 months and not realize you have one of those people in there and they'll destroy the whole thing. Just one bad person can destroy the whole thing. So just making sure you have people that even have the ability to be positive and then just kind of trying to push that positive mentality. I mean, I joke around with all my guys. I try not to be, if we're getting our work done, great. Then I don't try to be super serious, keep things light. And we've had a lot of people that have left, I'm going over here, I'm going to make all this money, great. And then 2 months later, kind of my job back because they just went there. They made more money and it was fine, but miserable. So that would be my take. Is another thing on that hiring people situation is you have to make sure if you get them that you do have a comfortable environment for them to come into.
You just mentioned the magic word McDonald's, and I can't help but just share one quick anecdote. How many of you have ever eaten at a Culver's? Anyone in the audience ever eat at Culver's? Lots of hands. I have a proposition for you. I'm going to start a business, and we have a board meeting tomorrow, and I'm going to go into my board meeting and tell the board, inform the board, I want to start a hamburger joint. And I have this really cool idea. I'm going to make my customers wait for my hamburgers. They're going to wait. They're going to put the order in the drive-thru, and I'm going to ask them to pull up and wait, and I'm going to deliver them something very magical. It's called a hot hamburger with Wisconsin cheese melting on top of it. The second thing I'm going to tell the board tomorrow is I'm gonna actually spend more on my direct material because I wanna deliver a higher quality product to my customer than the #1 recognized brand in the world, McDonald's. So we're gonna spend more, our direct material cost is gonna go up. And the third thing we're gonna do is we're gonna increase our prices. We're gonna charge more. We're not gonna have an extra value meal and charge people 79 cents for a piece of warm cardboard out of a plastic tray. We're gonna actually charge more. We're gonna drive our prices up. How many of you are willing to invest? I need investors. Culver's has decimated, blown McDonald's out of the water. And if you think of all of your challenges running your job shop business, think of the dynamic. Right? Everybody tells you, we need to improve our speed. Customers want their Big Mac faster. We need to take cost. We're a publicly traded company, take cost out of our product to improve our margin. And boy, competition's fierce. Chipotle, we got to reduce our prices and come up with an extra value meal to completely cannibalize our menu. Culver's did the exact opposite. Their business grew, and they've left McDonald's in the dust. Just something to chew on.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. We are at time. Jordan will introduce the next panel, but a huge round of applause for the Anchor Bay panel. Thank you very much.